So good evening, everybody, and welcome to Matt Lowe today. Matt, would you care to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you?
Hi, Matt. Yeah, thank you. So my name's Matthew Lowe. I am a consultant physiotherapist in musculoskeletal at University Hospitals Dorset, NHS Foundation Trust, which is a combination of hospitals. It's Poole, Bournemouth and Christchurch hospitals. I joined the MACP, and I'm anticipating your question, Matt. I'm getting ahead of myself,
That's
probably.
good. That's good.
So basically, I joined the MACP because of I looked up to and it was from role modeling. So I looked up at MACP clinicians, and I wanted to be able to be as good as they were. So I was fortunate enough to be educated at an undergraduate level by an MACP member who is now part of the committee. He was an inspirational teacher, still is, and I'm fortunate to call him a friend and a peer. So it's Neil Langridge. And he educated me at an undergraduate level, and then was a part of that process. And then he when I started working at Bournemouth Hospital, he was a senior physiotherapist and then moved on to a different area. But he was certainly an inspiration for me to seek out similar types of ways of thinking or different opportunities of learning. And there were other MACP members who were equally inspiring. So for me, that was the initial thing that kind of brought me towards the MACP. When I started my MACP membership route, which is at the time doing a master's in neuromusculoskeletal at Brighton University, I think I started back in 2009, something like that. I found it such a rich learning experience. I couldn't speak more highly of it. It was grounded in clinical practice, but it left lots of space to understand the theoretical and all of the nuances of clinical practice, and it was very contemporary. So I have a lot to thank Brighton University and the MSc program there. And of course, my access to the MACP meant that I could go on clinical placement. Now, lots of people might see that as threatening, but it was one of the best learning experiences I've ever had in my career. It was challenging, but from that, I think, gave me lots of not just clinical skills, but I learned a lot about myself throughout the whole MSc and the clinical placement. And I think that gave me a very strong platform to grow and build and develop. And I'm very fortunate to be a part of the MACP Executive Committee today.
So it's clear that from what you've said to Matt, that the role modeling and that aspirational quality, so working in a close area like a department, fed that enthusiasm for progression.
Yeah, absolutely. So there were 2 or 3 MACP members who worked in our department, and all of them had a high level of communication, clinical reasoning, and clinical skills, and they were able to articulate in a very grounded way the challenges of managing certain situations, not just in clinical practice, but in non-clinical contexts as well. So there was a form of wisdom that I think that they had. And I think it was because of the exposure to such challenges that is to get through the course. I mean, it is challenging, it is difficult. But I think, yeah, absolutely. It was surrounding myself with people like that, I think provided provided me with a very clear desire to get onto the MSc course, which was led on to membership to the MACP. And I don't think I've looked back since.
Fantastic. And so transition from member then to knowledge translation officer for the MACP. Can you share with us your thoughts and visions for the future for that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I became a member of the exec committee, I think something around 2012, and I was the secretary and co-chair of the PDC at the time, and I did that role and I really enjoyed it. but I then left the exec and have come back this year. I've been co-opted in to become knowledge translation officer. So knowledge translation is an area that I'm really interested in. There are challenges because historically, I think knowledge translation has always been seen as this linear thing. You transmit knowledge or you express it and then you understand it and you put it into practice. But really, knowledge is something that transforms, it changes depending on the context. And of course, there are many different forms of knowledge. Knowledge could be seen as something that's very tacit. It could be something that is very implicit. It could be something that is associated with wisdom about practice. And also knowledge could be something that is seen as factual. So knowledge in itself comes in lots of different forms. And I think how we use knowledge and how we share knowledge and how we understand knowledge is something that is community-led rather than individually led. So what I want to do is take that kind of those key conceptual ideas and put them into a strategy for the MACP. And that basically looks like using lots of different forms of media, such as podcasts and engaging material, webinars, but also actually seeing if we can consider developing communities of practice that can have conversations around really important issues that matter to people in small communities. That could be in pubs, could be in coffee shops, could be in service training, it could be anywhere. But I think it's the active engagement in those kind of ideas that I think makes knowledge translation so interesting.
Fantastic. Thanks for sharing your background and your vision for the future. I'll stop recording now. Thank you.
Pleasure.